Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Addicts Advocate. I am your host, Dusty Dean, and it is my pleasure to introduce Sarah. How are you, Sarah?
Good. Good
Good, good.
morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hey, thanks for spending a Saturday with me, talking about all things addiction and recovery related. Just a little show note. I've been actually MIA for the last couple of months. I stopped recording and kind of took a step back. I had a little bit of recovery fatigue doing this, I think, and this needed to kind of regroup. I wanted to re-energize. I wanted to make sure that I was wholly present and engaged with my guests, and making sure that we will continue to put out high quality content that will hopefully help somebody in their struggles. And that's ultimately the goal with what we're doing here, as well as if you're out of town, you can't get yourself to an AA meeting, but you need to keep yourself in the loop. This gives you a medium in which you can just hear somebody else's story and relate and recognize you're not alone. I mean, that's the goal, right? We are not alone in this struggle. It's so important. This disease has a wonderful way of isolating us. It has a wonderful way of making us feel like we are the worst in the world. It makes us feel like we don't deserve anything. And that just isn't the case. Now, unfortunately, with our addictions, we end up usually paying the price through consequences we make in our addiction. I know for me, one of the troublesome things that I'm still paying the price for is gambling debt from being inebriated and making poor decisions. But nonetheless, I'm sober and I'm clean and I'm conscious now of every decision I make. Anyway, nonetheless, enough about me. Sarah, welcome to the show. Thank you for spending your day. And I'm going to give the floor to you, and you tell us what is going on.
Well, thank you for having me. My addiction really started before my addiction even started. I had addict behaviors before I ever took that first drug. A lot of childhood trauma. And then that trauma continued on into relationships as an adult. Those relationships gave me 3 beautiful children that I would not change the world for, who are now grown. But at the time, I was a single mother of 3 children. They were all under the age of 10. I was a nursing student and worked a full-time job. So my life was very chaotic, very stressful. Went out with my friends one night and broke my ankle. Went to the doctor and, she was broke. So they gave me, of course, the opiates. That first pill was like, okay, that's great. Ankle doesn't hurt as much. That second pill, instantly it felt like home. It felt like the warmest, fuzziest, most loved hug in the world. And from there, my addiction just continued. I would say I was a functional addict. Looking back on it, I wasn't highly functional, but not functional enough where people didn't call me out on it. I worked as a nurse in long-term care, continued to raise my children, met my husband, and, eventually my addiction turned into diversion of drugs. I would buy them from people. I had only ever smoked marijuana twice, and I think I was 18. I had never even seen any other illegal drug. I wasn't a huge fan of drinking. I didn't like the taste. But those pills, man, they were home. That was home. That was love. I had, and I still have, love for my children, true love for my children. But taking those pills was the first time I felt that real unconditional love. It gave me something I had always wanted from the time I was probably born, is knowing I was loved, I was safe, that home feeling. So that addiction continued. My kids grew. My oldest left home. I had a hard time with it, but I made it through. Second left home. Then we get to my third child, my only girl, my daughter. Graduated high school. Graduated our local college. She lived at home because, it was a 45-minute drive. And when she left home, my husband worked on the road. It would be the first time I had ever lived by myself. I was 18 when I got pregnant the first time, 19 when I had him, 20 when I had the second, and 25 when I had the third. So instead of being vulnerable with people, because I don't like feelings, I still don't like feelings. Who likes feelings? Sure don't want to share them or deal with them. My drug addiction spiraled. And that addiction led me to do things that I am absolutely ashamed of. I am embarrassed by. I'm very, very remorseful for. The only reason that I ever got the help I needed, I knew about a month before I got the help I needed that I was an addict. Because I sat there one night and I was like talking to myself in my bedroom in the dark, taking more pills. You're an addict. And I knew it. But leading up to me getting help, I made some poor decisions, got in legal issues. I got caught. I went to jail. And, once I went to jail, I didn't have to lie anymore. I didn't have any big secrets to hide because unfortunately what I did was special enough to make the local news.
Hmm.
I live in a very small community of people and they're very judgmental. It's a rural community. Addiction is very looked down upon here, very. Let alone, I was a nurse in long-term care. I worked long hours. I took care of several people's family members. That all came out. I didn't have to hide behind anything anymore. My husband had no idea, none. He works on the road, so he was only home 4 days a month. So he had no idea. He just knew we were broke. And why were we broke? Well, because his wife was spending money on all these drugs. But was I going to tell him that? No, it was because we had bills. You lie, you manipulate, you do what you need to do to continue that addiction. And upon doing what I did, I remember going to do what I did, saying to myself, Sarah, you're a fucking idiot. You're going to get caught. Did it anyway. I think I wanted to get caught. I needed to get caught. No one particularly likes the outcome of being caught. And unfortunately for me, it was what I needed. And from there, I went to jail. I had 2 weeks from the time I was in jail to the time I went to inpatient treatment. I was very lucky and grateful in the fact that I was on my husband's insurance. And I researched the treatment facility I was going to go to, and I did end up going to LA to restore health and wellness for inpatient treatment. I chose to go there because it was clear away from anyone I knew. Anyone. I could call anyone I wanted. There was no one coming to get me. I know no one who had what I needed there. They took my debit card, my ID. I was always free to leave treatment, but I don't know where I was going to go in LA with nothing. So I decided to stay. And they also, like a lot of treatment facilities, I do smoke and I drink caffeine. A lot of treatment facilities don't allow you to have that. And my thoughts are, listen, I got all kinds of addictions, but let's deal with the one that's going to kill me first. We can deal with the rest later. My cigarettes and my Diet Dr. Pepper, let me have that right now. And it's ran by addicts, previous addicts that had been where I'd been. And I got there, and the staff there was absolutely amazing. They knew where I had been. They called me on my bullshit. There was no manipulation because they knew what I was doing. They did offer medication-assisted treatment, and I refused it. In a way, opiate withdrawal's horrible. And I was taking 30 to 40 pills a day. So I probably had like a heroin level in my body. The withdrawal was awful. And that is the biggest thing why I never went and got help, is I was scared of that withdrawal because I know how bad it is. The body aches, your skin crawling, the nausea, the diarrhea, the anxiety, the depression, the crying. You don't know why you're crying. The wanting to die when you're going through it. But if you take these little white pills that you'll be fine. I refused it because I felt like I needed to feel the pain of going through that withdrawal so that I would never forget to go back to where I was. And that's one of the biggest things, outside of my family and the life I have right now that I am so grateful for. It's the memory of that withdrawal that keeps me from going back out. So I did go through inpatient treatment. I did the 30 days there, and then I came back to Iowa and made sure I got directly into an IOP program. Completed that, went to an outpatient program, completed that. I got home and then went to a meeting the next day. And I've become very involved in the recovery community to build that base, to give myself that support that I need so that I can continue, because I don't want to ever go back to what I was, because I will lose everything I have now. And I don't want that. I love what I have now.
Wow, Sarah, I've been feverishly scrambling and writing notes because there were so many things that I want to talk about here. First of all, thank you for sharing. It's liberating getting caught in a sense, right? And I think that we get to a point where we know that that's your recovery story, as far as like the recognition and then the getting help, is very similar to what happened with me. I was basically like, it was one of those things. I was by myself and I'm like, I cannot live like this anymore. And I recognize I cannot do it anymore, but I'm going to go and get help, but I'm going to tip my toe into it. And it's during that moment when you recognize that you need help. It's that space between getting help, needing it, and getting it. That's a very dangerous moment, because I think that you've already conceded that you can't do this anymore, but you're going to go out with one last bang. And it's usually that one last bang that usually has consequences associated with it. I have some friends of mine who unfortunately have relapsed in recovery, and when they've relapsed, it was so bad that that's usually when those legal consequences come for them. And they're back in rehab and they're just looking at themselves going, wow, I mean, this addiction thing is really powerful. It's sneaky. It's as sneaky as we were.
Yes.
There's a quote that I've been hearing lately that says, I don't want to talk about your addiction. I want to talk about your pain. And I thought that's kind of profound, because I do believe that, I know for me, especially, mental health was a big driver in my addictions. And not to say that, that is also, I think they're both kind of tied together. I mean, if you have that addictive personality, then you have trauma. It's just it's a perfect storm. Have you reconciled that trauma in your heart and in your life? Have you been able to finally kind of, at least counsel yourself through that, counsel with therapy, and, and talk to people and kind of get that behind you? Has that been successful?
I have written letters, because I don't like confrontation. If I'm mad, I will gladly confront you. But when it comes to the hurt feelings, I don't like the confrontation. So I wrote letters to people that had hurt me that I know I will never get what I need from them. But I wrote those letters. I have those letters. I never sent them. I just have them. I also had to reconcile the unconditional love that I was always chasing. I always had in the one person, which was my grandma. I had that from her, but that's not who I wanted it from at the time.
Right.
So I reconciled all of it, and I'm still a little, you get sad about it, but I'm not chasing that love from people that I'll never get it from. And I understand that they probably can't give it, and they don't even realize that they're not giving it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did the same thing. And for me, some of the pain that I had to reconcile was loss, was grief. I lost a daughter back in 2012. I had lost my father suddenly in 2016. And I know that, in trying to be a father and trying to work for a living, all these things, right? When trauma hits you, when you have all these obligations in your life, it's very difficult to sit there and sit in it. It's, I've got all this other things pulling at me. So you never grieve properly. And I think that's a dangerous thing. We have to give each other time to grieve. And I wrote letters to both of them, and I never sent them. But I tell you, it was so closing for me. It was finally, it was so good to get it off the heart, because at the very least I've reconciled it. Even if I can't reconcile it with them. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. when we're in our addiction, right, with our emotions being so unregulated, right, that when we get clean and we look back at our relationships, we can look at them more objectively, and we can recognize that, you know what, unfortunately, yeah, our family's doing the best that they can. They're trying to live through this life, and unfortunately, they can't communicate. They can't offer things that I really wish they could, but it's just not in their nature. It's never going to be in their nature, and this is just who I was born into, and I have to just let it be. You're right, because otherwise I'll go crazy about it. Trying to change things that are never going to be able to be changed, right?
Yes.
And I think that in recovery, we are clear thinking and just in being able to manage that. And I think that it doesn't affect our hearts as heavy as it used to. Because I think when we're in addiction, our hearts are just, again, also just so unregulated, and everything means so much, and it's just so amplified that in of itself, calming down is just a beautiful thing. This home feeling, yeah, that's as far as the way that the pills made you feel, that warm kind of cuddle. I think a lot of what happens, right, is that it strips away some of our natural kind of anxiety tendencies and things like that. And so it's calmed us down, right? And that calming us down, we don't recognize that, wow, we actually have been operating our lives at a different frequency. And sometimes it's just the way we are, right? Especially when you think about, mild, like different types of mental health conditions, just simply like ADHD, OCD, those things that when we find a way just to calm down that engine that's running inside of us, it's like it's a godsend. And so no, we want that feeling all the time because we're just more comfortable in our skin.
Yeah.
And it's really a self-preservation thing that we're doing. We don't recognize it at the time, but it's really a self-preservation. And that's addiction slipping its way in. It's cunning, powerful, and baffling, right?
Yeah.
What other? Let me see here. I've got so many things. As far as just the getting found out, I totally agree with you. You get to the point where you're just like, I can't let anybody know I'm an addict. And you're like, screw it. I'm an addict, everyone. Guess what? Cat's out of the bag. I'm fine with that. Because I'm very big right now about, at least, since the start of my recovery, I really want to change the perception of that word, addict. Because I think it's almost like it's a bad word. And I don't want it to be a bad word. It's just a description. It's just a describer. It doesn't define and encompass completely who we are, much as someone who's got diabetes. I've talked about this before. I have an addiction. I'm not the addiction. That's different, right?
Yes.
And it's beautiful that you can find people that are empathetic to the struggle. And I know that I agree with you. Recovery, you got to be in it. You got to be in it all the time. When you've got the help and you've recognized that there's other souls out here that have been through the same struggle who are now giving back. I think it's a beautiful thing to give back, but it's also a function of our staying sober.
Absolutely.
We've got to be in it. But yes, the lies, the manipulations, we're so cunning. We spend so much time trying to not get caught.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the irony is that we do want to get caught.
Yes. Yes. And thinking back, the amount of chaos my life was in active addiction was insane. Insane.
Right.
I look at my life now. I'll have 2 years clean March 27th. And
woohoo!
I feel like I live a boring life now. And I do. And I love it. I love being boring. Absolutely love it. To go back to doing the constant spinning of how am I going to go to work? How am I going to get the drugs? Where am I going to get the money for the drugs? When does this person get this and this person get that? I don't have to do that at all. My day there's so much more time in a day when I'm not worried about this little white pill that's going to make me feel normal. And I've come to realize that I'm probably never going to be normal. I'm unhinged in my own fun way. But, life is fun. And I'm one that would like to have fun instead of, woo, I'm clean another day. Oh, boy, what am I going to do? Nothing. There's nothing fun. I don't know. I'll party all by myself listening to the radio. I go to the gym every day. I didn't the first year, and something no one told me about was the 60-pound weight gain that came with getting clean. But I was still clean. I was fat, but I'm still chunky, but I was fatter, and I was clean. But I think recovery changes the longer you're in it. And I've learned just through my own recovery, I find I get bored. And so I do change things up, you know, and I'll go to the same meetings every day. Well, I do pretty much. But when I find I'm getting bored with them or I don't want to listen to the people on my meeting, I'll go to a different one. I don't stop going to meetings. I just find a different one. You know, when I find I get bored at the gym, I have to switch things up in life. Because unfortunately, I'm pretty sure I do have ADD. It'll be all right.
It'll be all right.
Whatever. I'm dealing with the feelings that led to the addiction, the feelings I didn't want to deal with, the feelings that hurt to deal with. And now I try to share those when I feel them. There's sometimes I still prefer not to. You know, I'm quick to share the angry feelings. It's the hurt feelings, the I need more from you feelings that I'm not so fast to share.
Yeah.
But they eventually come out.
Yeah, I am. It's interesting because I used to be very, very, very quick to respond when I've been slighted, right? And I know some of that is a function of my personality. Some of that is a function of, again, trauma. Some of that is a function of course, not being heard, not being listened to, disregarded, so on and so forth. But one of the things that recovery has taught me is that putting a set of armor on. You know, I've allowed myself to put that armor on. I've allowed myself to give myself boundaries that nobody can penetrate. You're not allowed to. Nobody is allowed to. I don't care how close you are to me in my life, how long I've known you. I have a wall here. And at that point, you're just basically disrespecting me. And I'm not going to tolerate it. And that's just the way that I'm going to stand. And if people get butthurt about it, so be it. I can't care. I have to take care of putting my airplane mask on first before I take care of somebody else's mask. And I'm very, very big on preserving that now. And it's given me a base to which to operate from, which has been beautiful. I'm not so wishy-washy and going, okay, well, because a lot of my bag used to be questioning if I was right. I never questioned if the other person was wrong. It was purely always just, am I right? And so I'd be constantly subject to influence, to anything that anybody said. Regardless, and again, it's because when you start doing that, you got to start dealing with other people's motivations as to why you're telling things, and so it gets really ugly fast. The thing about being an addiction is occupying in your day. Oh my God, it's brutal. It's like it's an active part of your life, and whether you're going to find out when you're going to be able to do it, how you're going to get it, and then just when you're not using, thinking about when you're going to. It's just so occupying. And that's one of the things that I've had some friends who have made small slip ups. We're not going to call them full blown relapses. They were slip ups and in the process of that slip up, they recognize just the consuming mind of the addiction, and just removing that from your life is so freeing. You're just like, and I think as addicts, we perceive time a little bit differently. I think part of it is just the function of our brain activity. They say that addicts typically have almost double the thought processes of a normal person. And so we're already running at a fast pace that when you remove the addiction, when you all of a sudden free up that time, it can get a little scary and daunting because your hobby was, you already had your hobby whenever you get your free time. Now the hobby's gone. You're like, okay, what do I do now? And that becomes anxiety driven at that point then, right? And so we're very big in my eye because I have basically I'm in an extension of IOP right now. It's an aftercare program. It's basically the people that have graduated all, and it's been a really great community. But the thing that we recognize is that recovery is not stopping using. It's not it. Recovery is so much more than that, and it has to be, because otherwise you're a dry addict. And you're not gonna, you're setting yourself up for failure, and heaven forbid we spend all this work to get there. The beautiful thing is that you can't undo growth. Even if someone relapses, it's usually so in their face that they recognize what they're doing. But at the same time, that can be very dangerous. The mental state of that, right? With alcohol messing with dopamine, serotonin levels. I've witnessed it on the sober side, looking at people that recognize that they've had problems, that have been in a relapse, and you're going, oh my goodness, they would be okay with dying tonight, and that's not what we want.
And fortunately, the things I've learned just being around previous addicts, We are some of the smartest people you will ever meet. Got a problem? We can help you figure it out. And that's one thing that a lot of people take for granted, and they think that we're just some addict that is going to do whatever, wherever. No, we are very, very intelligent people. We're all intelligent in our own different ways. And I've also learned through addiction that a relapse starts long before you ever use. And when you have that base system and you're around those people and you know those people and they can see behavior changes in you or you see behavior changes in them, that's one thing I'm very grateful for, is that we can call each other out on that long before they take that drug. Yeah. So that we can help them, and we call them out on things and we're honest with them. We don't call them out and be mean by any means, but we're like, hey, I noticed that, you don't come to the same meetings you do, or you're showing up late to meetings. You're not taking care of yourself. What's going on? Yeah. Before they take that drug. Yeah. And that's one thing that I'm really grateful for, because, it's helped so many people to recognize that, because a relapse starts long before you even take that first drug, Absolutely. And it's hard to see in yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's, if we can be, there was a famous quote that says, that the greatest thing an individual can do is not change the world, but change themselves. And I go, that's profound. And I feel like we should constantly try to refine ourselves as individuals, right? Recognize why we're here on earth, work through our struggles, work through the crosses we bear, etc. And I agree with you totally. One of the things that was so remarkable to me is like one of the first AA meetings was just the fact that they hand around, the book, right? The little pamphlet, right? That everybody can put their names on, right? And their phone numbers and give it to people. And that's the key, right? It's like, we're about letting you give us a call when you're in that moment of wanting to use. And we're going to be that ear that's going to let you scream at. It's going to be pissed. It's going to be mad. It's going to be hating yourself because of this addiction and everything else. And we're going to help you get that out of you. We're just going to make sure that you don't use. That's the goal, because we get it. We understand that this thing inside of us just has a mind of its own. And you're right. One of the things I think that, at least for me, and I can assume that maybe drives other people to not get treatment, is this notion of, I'm going to go into a treatment center and I'm going to be dealing with a bunch of degenerates. I'm going to deal with people that are basically in the corner shaking, mumbling to themselves, or a bunch of losers, whatever that word means. And I'm going to be basically now labeled as someone like that. And it's the furthest from the truth. It is Absolutely. So I've interfaced with, I literally had a man that was seven times business owner, had sold like 7 businesses, was uber wealthy, and recognized that like 70 years old that he was a functioning alcoholic. And he even actually had somebody call him on it like years before. And it was a managed reality for him. And he was highly successful. And, he came from the era of a 2 martini lunch, right? And yet what happened was that it made that change of descent. It went click on him, and he started hiding bottles. And it was just like, wow, I've been doing this for so long. And then all of a sudden it just makes this change in my life where it's just now aggressively taking me down and I have no more control over it. And I watched the man literally in 30 days de-age 10 years from being sober. It was amazing. Nice. And the life and the vigor coming back into this man, it was a beautiful experience. But I mean, Google executives, people that are highly, highly successful, people that have been in Forbes magazine. I mean, I've interfaced with people that I'm just like, wow. And so what it does, though, it makes for enriched conversation. It makes for not stale evenings, when you're really truly having intimate conversations with people in recovery, you find out that there's a lot of brilliance there. And I think it's a function of because that mind's moving so stinking fast, and because life ends up, if you're smart, more demands are placed on you, more obligations are placed on you. You're expected because you can handle it, and you're like, okay, well. It's kind of like work, it's at work, right? We have that one individual that's really good at certain things, so we constantly pile it on them instead of dispersing the work still. And they're like, hey, just because I'm good at it doesn't mean I should be doing it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that's something that people needed to hear, that hey, there's so much love, and you may never hear. You may feel so ashamed of your addiction because you have people around you just going, why don't you just stop? What's the matter with you? I don't have this problem. Why should you have a problem? Why can't you just stop? I have control over my use of drinking or whatever, the justification is. And that's the last person you want to talk to. And the unfortunate thing, right, is that we know that addiction can be generational. Right. And so we have those that the unfortunate thing, right, is that heaven forbid it skips a generation. So you have basically the ones that are raising you that don't have the problem, but you got it from your grandparents, and they don't know how to deal with it with you. And that's where, again, the empathy, find, what, you want to get into recovery, find yourself a recovering addict. They will help you get into recovery, and they will do it with love and empathy and understanding, and they will get you when nobody else ever has. You can be fun, like,
and there won't be any judgment whatsoever. Because I guarantee you the things that you're hiding that you've done in your addiction, we've done it. Maybe not in the exact same way, but we have done it. At least someone we know has done what you've done. So don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Share with the people that you can, your safe people in it that are in recovery.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've had this, we don't shame people who have diabetes, right? We don't shame people that have high cholesterol, it just, let's just kind of work. We got to manage it, right? And that's something that we have to manage. We have to be recognizing that we're not walking away from this. We're not ever going to be cured, because that's what happened to me. I got cured twice from, alcohol issues, and that's what ended up me here. So doesn't work.
One thing I do have to say is you'd thrown in some celebrities and people that you wouldn't believe. One thing that I really think is helping the recovery community, and I love him with my whole heart, is Jelly Roll, because he speaks open, honestly about addiction. The songs he's coming out with, amazing. All of us in recovery, at least the recovery I'm in, have listened to him, and we can relate to him. He's trying to make it not such a stigma, and know that people can come from their lowest and they can achieve some of the greatest things. Amen. Am I going to be a millionaire? Probably not. Can I sing? Oh, absolutely not. But from my lowest sitting in that jail cell to where I'm at now, it's worth $10 million to me. Oh, it's priceless.
Yeah.
And every addict can have that.
Yeah.
And I think just sharing things publicly, recovering loudly, is going to make it easier for those who still need the help out there.
Right.
Who are ashamed to ask for the help. In my community, my name and number is out there. My name and number is out there on everything. On, like my Facebook page, my TikTok. I recover out loud so that hopefully what I'm doing will change one person. If I help just one person not go down the road I did, it's worth it. Because it's not shameful to be an addict. It's not. Everyone is addicted to something. Are you addicted to your pop? Are you addicted to cigarettes? Are you addicted to that candy bar? Everyone is addicted to.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I sure am. So just because I was a drug addict doesn't make me a bad person.
Absolutely.
I made very bad choices. Very bad. And I can't even say that I willingly made those choices. My addiction drove me to make those choices. And there are people that I need to make amends to because I hurt people that were close to me. Yeah. I hurt previous neighbors, and I need to make amends to them. I hurt previous employers. I need to make amends to them. When I get to that step in my recovery, I will absolutely do it if I am able and allowed. Because they didn't ask to be a part of my addiction. And my addiction hurt them. I broke trust. I broke a lot of things with them. And so if it means I can help one person not go down my road, absolutely. I will take any public news article that comes out about what I did. You know, I've tried to make amends to my family. The best thing I can do right now is living amends. Changing my behaviors, my actions, everything. And I know that my connection with them is so much stronger than it ever was. My daughter actually, because of the choices that I made, she will graduate with a bachelor's in social work with a minor in criminal justice. And she currently is doing her preceptorship at a diversion program for adolescents. I know that her and some of her classmates have come to our meetings, and she thinks, and I agree with her, even if you don't have an addiction, those meetings can be used in everyday life.
Oh, yeah.
That they teach you how to be a better person. And it's helped me learn how to have a true conversation. You know, my daughter has said I've changed so much since I went to those meetings, since I still go to those meetings, and how I've changed. And the relationship that her and I have now is so much different than what it used to be. And the relationship with the people I have, even in my community, is an open, honest relationship. There's no trying to get in the back door and please trust me so I can manipulate you. I don't want anything. If I want something, I'm going to ask you, but you're my friend because you're my friend. And you're not my friend because you have the drugs I'm looking for.
Just the first thing that comes to my mind, I'm just listening to you. I mean, I feel like I was welling up in tears because your strength is just absolutely amazing. I don't even know you. This is my first time talking with you, and I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you.
You hit the nail on the head so many different ways. Yes, thank God for Jelly Roll. What a blessing for him to come out and I mean, again, he's a bear witness to it all. And yeah, nobody walks through these doors on a winning streak. You're like, oh my goodness, dude. Oh my goodness. I mean, unbelievable.
Yes.
And I agree with you. I think the timing is impeccable. I know that there's already the generations behind us that are already apparently the drinking is like just been dropping off tremendously, which is a good thing. And yeah, I mean, because I don't ever want somebody to feel like the way that I felt and feel like they got nobody to go to. Bottom line.
Absolutely.
I never want somebody to feel like that and go, oh my God, I got nobody I can turn to, because they're going to take the worst option at that point. And that worst option is it leaves a freaking aftermath that is just so devastating and so confusing and leaves trauma for others in your life that you're basically trying to remove your own trauma from your own life or trying to manage your own trauma. Why in God's green earth would we want to start putting trauma onto others? But that's what addiction does, right? Is that we take our pain and we transfer it to those we love. And when I heard that in recovery, I was like, oh my goodness, it's exactly what we're doing. And at that point, it's like, you can't do that anymore, because that to me is a selfish act. But recover out loud. Yes, I have absolutely zero shame in talking about it. And the irony is that you almost, there's that energy in the universe, right? That people, all of a sudden people will start talking to you about things and you're like, oh, this is divine intervention. I was put here for a reason. And I actually had a double whammy. I had a buddy down the street that was talking about, we were talking about God one day, and then he ended up kind of confessing that he was dealing with an opiate issue. And I'm like, whoa. And he's trying to stop. You're just like, awesome. I'm like, God, thank God I'm here, right here. We can talk about this. I'm like, we got you, brother. You can do this. It's going to suck, but we got you. What's going on with triggers? What catalyzes them for you right now?
I don't have many.
Okay.
But pill bottles, I see them. Does it trigger me to want to go use? No, but it gets you back in that
it's a memory
addict way of thinking, like, what's in there? What's in there? Do I want to go take it and take whatever's in there? No. So it's weird. I've only had one time where I really wanted to go use, and I was on my way to my federal plea hearing. And I tell you what, if I could have used, I would have. Because the amount of anxiety and unknowing of what's going to happen, I wanted to go use. Awful. awful, awful. But thank God that the rational part of my brain kicked in, and I was like, I got to get on a meeting. And I did. I got on a virtual meeting. At that moment, I needed to hear serenity prayer. I needed to hear that third step. I needed to hear other addicts talk and know that people had, I can't say they've been in my exact situation because unfortunately not a lot have, but some have. And they've come through the other side. You know, a lot of, one thing I do struggle with is the thinking ahead, the anxiety about the future.
Future tripping, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know what the outcome of my federal court case is going to be.
Yeah.
It's been going on for 2 years now, and I've rebuilt my life. I have stayed clean. I've done all the things, you know, but I still made poor choices. And I'm still going to have to suffer the consequences of my actions. And my biggest anxiety about it is how it's going to hurt my family again. Because when I got clean, I swore I would not hurt my family anymore. And I have, any actions I've made since that date, I have not hurt them. But this is going to hurt them. This is going to cut them deep. And I now have 2 little grandsons that it's going to cut my heart out, however this comes out. I have changed everything in my life and tried to help others for the right reasons. So I'm hoping, praying, and I have faith that it'll turn out the way it's supposed to. It's going to be what it is, but it's still hard to look at it and know what could possibly be coming.
It's something as I have to deal with it now, right? You know, I'm going to pay for the next, good couple of years still. I get to pay for the decisions that I've made. And I guess for me, one of the things that was kind of healing was that once the family found out, the things that I've done, right? And then the reciprocations, what the consequences are. Once you get it out and you recognize, okay, this is what it is. This is the reason why it happened. That's never going to happen. So it should never catalyze for this type of action for this consequence. We got to put it behind us, and just recognize that, it's a product of the old life. It's a scar. It's a scar. That actually kind of empowered me in a way. It's just like, hey, I can wholly own up to it. I'm like, yeah, this is my bag. This is what I did. I was stupid. Addiction did this to me and it caused me to do this. And now I get to pay for it. The end. Never going to do that again. But hey, so my suggestion to you is don't do what I did. It doesn't end well. It doesn't end well.
Exactly. And I did find that one of the things that helps me get through that is I do have to remember I need to live in today. Yeah. I can't look back at the things I did, worry about that.
Right.
And I can't look too far forward and worry about that because that will send me full of anxiety. And why would I spend this time clean if I know I'm going to federal prison or whatever? Why don't I just go out and have a good time and not have to deal with the way I'm feeling?
Right.
So if I need to worry, I get 10 minutes. I set a timer. I worry for 10 minutes. When that timer goes off, I'm done. It's got to stop. I got to carry on. I worry about the same things for the same 10 minutes every time I need to, but it is what it is. I give myself that worry time, and then I have to, go look and enjoy what I have right here with me. Right here for today, for right now. And I can find joy in just about anything because, they teach you that you got to get rid of the stinking thinking. Instead, I get to. Especially when you're faced with the chance that you might not be able to. So you do enjoy some of the dumber things that you never thought you'd enjoy. Just driving around and singing.
There's something to be said about that, and I agree with you. I've constantly put it in my mind on a daily basis to try to be grateful. Mm-hmm. Remember the things that I've got, have that gratitude, because again, it washes away a lot of that future tripping. It washes away some of that shit from the past. Because the reality was, you sit and go, wow, I'm like, through all of that, here I am. I'm like, wow, still here, still made it. And that's That's something to, there is a source of pride, I think, in that. Because I think as addicts, right, I think we have very full lives in all of the ups and downs.
Yeah.
Some people have boring lives, and I guess that's one way to live. But to me, the experience is invaluable. It's taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me a lot about society. It's taught me a lot about other people's struggles. Recognizing the threads that we have between us as human beings, so important. The triggers are interesting. I've talked with a lot of people about just the basic stuff, right? The basic triggers that will come and get you. But there are, from my understanding, right, is that the way, because once we get into our addiction, right, that's like animalistic brain type stuff that starts thinking, right. But what happens, right, is that it logs memories with that use, right, it stores it. So again, that pill bottle, the memory goes, hey, remember what happens when we see a pill bottle? We do all this other stuff,
Yep.
and we feel all good. So when you sit there and go, I see the pill bottle, the memory comes up, it goes, oh, you're not going to do anything with that? Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm still going to give you some of that anxiety. I'm going to give you some of that problems that you used to have that caused you to want to, just to let you know that we're still here.
Yep. And it's still, if I don't put my recovery first, my addiction's waiting in the parking lot for me. And it's not just going to say hi, but it's going to jump me and it's going to take me to places that I don't ever want to go. And I don't know if I could ever come back.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I had a really weird trigger recently where was helping someone in need, and it was a pretty stressful night. And then I was having massive anxiety trigger me for that next week, like immediately after work. Like I'd be driving home, and my anxiety was just skyrocketing, and that's usually, of course, the time when I'm getting off of work. Where do I usually go? Straight to the liquor store. And so it was fascinating because it took me a couple of days to recognize it, because I'm try to be very in tune with my mental health. I do have to manage it. I'm on meds for it. So when things are out of whack, because I had this new baseline that everything should be fine. So when it's not, I'm like, something's wrong. What's caused it, right? But yeah, it slowly subsided. By like Wednesday, I was like, okay, it's starting to kind of get under wraps again. But I said, wow, if I wasn't aware of it, I might have just simply sit there and go, I'm anxious. I'm not gonna be able to do this. I got to relapse,
Yeah.
And again, that's where I think the support team comes in, right? You got to sit there and go, hey, I'm feeling something. I don't know why, but you can eventually uncover things, if you really take the time. Your relationships, as far as post recovery, are you finding any peculiarities about them that maybe you didn't see in your addiction that you now have to manage?
My relationships now are different than they were before. When my kids would call, or especially my daughter, because, she's a girl and there's lots of drama there, but I would try to get her off the phone and would just, okay her, and I wouldn't truly be involved in that conversation. I truly have a conversation with her. So our relationship has gotten so much closer. Now, I've noticed with the people in my family that are not big conversationalists, it's mainly the men in my relationships that are not in the program. It's different, and I'm trying to find a way to navigate those relationships, because we go to these meetings and we share open, honestly, feelings, this and that. And for the people in my life, the men that are not in these programs, they don't share open, honest feelings. It's not that they lie about anything. They're just like, I'm fine. I'm okay. So I'm sure I'm annoying when I keep asking them what's wrong, what's going on, how can I help you? And they're like, I'm fine. Yeah. But I know they're not. So I'm trying to find ways to navigate that and have those open, honest conversations with me kind of backing off on my part and then kind of opening up on their part. But the relationships I have today are, whether it be family, friend, they're true relationships. Even, there's people in my recovery that are family now, where it feels like going home. And you have those open, honest conversations with them. Like if I know my husband isn't about to have some conversation about me being vulnerable and this and that, because he doesn't understand it, I go find someone in my recovery community that I need to have that conversation with and can share honestly with. And I consider, a lot of that like free counseling.
Absolutely.
Honestly, my
Yeah.
meetings are free counseling for anyone that needs it. You want to come, you want to share. We listen, we don't judge.
Yeah.
We listen.
Yeah.
Do you want feedback? I can give it to you at the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
But I found places in each relationship about how I need to navigate those relationships. So each one's different.
Yeah. It's nice, obviously, being in the clear headspace to look at it truly for what it is then too, right? And I agree with you. Yeah, it's always, I know when you first go into recovery, you're just like, I'm going to say something that probably sounds really weird and nobody probably understands what I'm going through and how this feels, but I'm going to say it and I'm going to put myself out there and everybody's like, oh, yep, yep, yep. And you're like, okay. You're like, thank God. But I agree with you. I am raw with my group. And we're all raw with each other. It's like we say things that you're just like, oh my God, if people were outside looking and like, I can't believe you're talking, you're saying things like with each other. I'm like, yeah, no, we know each other's intimately,
Yes.
and that's the way it should be. Because, and the beautiful thing is there's no judgment. It's navigating, post addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tricky because some of us have never matured out of our, have never matured, and that's part of the thing. I think that's big too, right? Is that if you've been struggling since your 20s and now you're in your 50s, well, you know what, you probably still are in your 20s, kind of as far as maturity wise, a little bit.
Oh, trust me, I know. My body and mind thinks I'm 19 and 20, but then I try to do something and I'm like, no, you're mid 40s. You should probably not do.
Right. So so here's a really good one. I like asking this question. Knowing what you know now, what if you have someone that you love that's struggling with addiction and you can start to see that it's starting to rear its ugly head? How would you love that person? What would you say? What would you do? What would be your approach?
So honestly, I can tell you what I would have needed, and one approach isn't going to work for every person.
Right.
What would have worked for me is had someone pulled me aside and been like, hey, what's going on? I'm noticing this, 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 and this. I know what you're doing. I know that you are using substances, and if you don't, you are going to get caught. I needed someone to lay me some clear boundaries. If you do not go get help for this, I will let your family know. I will let whatever I needed to do, whatever they needed to tell to whoever for me to get help. It also would have been better coming from someone who was an addict. Hey, I've been where you've been. I know how you're feeling. Let's go get you some help, and I will walk beside you while you tell your family. I will ride that plane with you to treatment. I will walk you to treatment. I will walk beside you when you go in that first meeting, because that is the scariest moment in your life. Honestly, no matter how much you want to pull that person aside, be honest with them. It's going to depend on that person if they're ready or not. Because I had been in trouble previously. I lied. I didn't have an addiction problem. It all depended on when they were ready. I have a son who is a meth addict, and he is in prison for the second time. I don't think there's anything I can say to him that is going to help him. The best thing I can do for anyone that may be struggling is to work my recovery program and put my name, number out there, and let them know I'm always available. I will always walk beside you as long as you are going the right direction. You start making a U-turn and headed on back, that's where I drop you and I keep heading forward. You can go back on your own. I'm not going to help you. I will help you go forward, and I will facilitate that in any way I can, whether it be rides, helping you obtain housing, doing what needs done. Just knowing that there's someone there to help do that. And I would make sure that that person knew, I'm not judging you because I've been there. I don't care what you've done. I care that you're here tomorrow. I care that you're here next week. So it's going to be unique for any place.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, it's something that I kind of incorporated into my questions just because I wanted to get perspective. Obviously having been on both sides now, and I agree with you. Right, nobody's getting sober and clean unless it's for themselves. They're not going to do it
Mm-hmm.
because their mama wants them to. I'm sorry, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work. It does not work. Um, but I agree with you. Right, it's because we can be real with these people. It's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is the way it's going to go down. It could be that here's one way it could go down. You could fake it for the next 20 years, have a great life, have a loving family, and everything else, have a great career, continue to advance in your career, think that you have control over it, and spend the next 20 years going through it, and then one day it starts changing on you. It's going to, because it's going to, it will eventually. It will
Oh yeah.
eventually, because either that or you're just simply living in denial and you're just destroying everything around you and you just don't give a shit about it, right? I mean, that's really
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen otherwise. And you're going to probably make some really, really, really bad decisions in that time, in that process of your addiction. Shit that you're going to sit there and go, how am I going to recover from it? But the crazy thing is that you will recover from it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and we will watch you go and make these bad decisions. We will watch you go down this. We will try to help you, but if you don't want it, you're not gonna take it. And the only way that this isn't gonna work is if you die,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because anything else is recoverable, but it's got to start. But again, and it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck right on the front end, really bad. But
Absolutely.
it's gonna absolutely suck. But we've all been through it, and you're gonna be
Mm-hmm.
okay. You're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I fascinate with, right? Because some perspectives is like, hey, we got to do the tough love. Some perspectives are, again, it's a rationalizing, understanding, educating. But I think there's something visceral that happens in addiction when you basically go, nope, I'm done. I, I,
Mm-hmm.
I really am done. And I think that it's, like I said, it's at that moment that you sit there and go, you're done. I'm taking you right now to a detox. I can't sit there and
Mm-hmm.
go, well, we're going to schedule you with a psychiatrist or a psychologist. We're not, because that's what I did. And I proceeded to go on a massive bender for like the next 15 days before I
Mm-hmm.
actually went in. And it got bad. It got really bad. And I think it was like, I knew this was the last hurrah. Because I was
Yeah.
truly found out, but I needed to be found out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's
Oh, I did the same thing because I got out of jail and I had, 2 weeks before I left for treatment so that I could get my job in order. And let me tell you, I took it. I took it all. I continued to make poor choices because I wasn't in my right mind. I didn't know I knew what I was doing, but you don't really know what you're doing.
yeah.
Absolutely. If you're going to tank it good.
Yeah.
Tank it good before you go. Because I mean, why would you go out and keep those 2 weeks sober before you go off to treatment?
Yeah.
Party on, Wayne, for the next 2 weeks. No, you need to go now.
Yeah. Yeah. Go now, now. Now,
Mm-hmm.
now. Like yesterday. Go yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that lead somebody to relapse?
Some of the biggest mistakes, not putting their recovery first, not putting themselves first. Other relationships are very important. The relationship with my kids, my husband, very important. My grandchildren, very important. But if I don't put my recovery and the relationship with myself first, I can't be there for those other relationships. Going back to those same people, same places, same things that you
People,
had.
places, things. Yep.
Yep. I went back to the same place, back to the same small town. I don't go to those same addresses. I didn't even go down those same streets. Mind you, we only have like 15 streets, but I didn't go down 3 of those streets for the first year just because it triggered me and I was panicking. Yeah, I really think if you don't put your recovery first and remember that you're willing and you have to surrender to this every day, because no matter how long I have clean, if I don't remember every day that I'm an addict, that even just one wrong step can lead me right back to where I was. I have to remember that. Have to.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's respecting this thing. You have to respect it, because the moment you stop respecting it and think that you're in charge is the moment it reminds you that you're not. And that's, I think the thing that's so frustrating, right? When we're trying to get clean, is hearing people that don't have the issue just going, well, yeah, it's easy. Just choose to not, just stop. And you're like, oh yeah, God, if it was only that easy. I'm like, I don't know why AA exists then. I don't know why.
Yeah. If it was that easy, I would have done it a long, long time ago before I ever got in trouble.
And I tell
it's
people,
obsessive compulsive behavior.
Yeah.
It's OCD. And
yeah, I tell people, I say, if addiction showed what it's capable of at the end of your addiction, if it showed you that at the beginning of your addiction, you know how there would be no alcohol sales in the country. It'd be like, forget this. I'm not going down this path. But that's just it. It's romanticized. It's so many things. And I in a previous life, I like to joke around that I used to have a winery. Of course, that's the worst thing, for somebody that's an alcoholic, is to have as a winery. But nonetheless, I did for a minute. And I even, before I recognized my own problem, I recognized it in the tasting room guests that I had. I'm like, wow, I get the repetitiveness. I'm like, I've recognized that I'm probably serving functioning alcoholics. So the irony is that I almost had like an ethics dilemma about it and what I was doing and what I was promoting, not recognizing the fact that I needed to deal with my own shit. Yeah. Just like, let me take care of everybody else out there. But yeah.
Yep.
Sarah, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
I feel like we're at a good point. Was there anything that you anything that was fresh on your mind that you felt was important to talk about, that you wanted to remind people of? The floor's kind of yours.
I just, I want to remind people that if you are someone that is an active addiction and is hiding your addiction, find someone who is a previous addict, who is in recovery. If you're ready to quit, come find one of us. We all have different paths. Someone has been where you're at. And I can tell you, I could walk up to someone like yourself that had a history with alcohol. I never have. I was an opiate addict, but you would still help me get to the correct places. So just because we don't use the same substances, you don't have to find someone with the exact same substance abuse or alcohol abuse or history. It doesn't matter. Any one of us will help you. And one thing to remember, when you come fresh out of recovery, you're going to have to learn to live a whole new life. And we are hardest on ourselves. I beat myself more than anyone else ever could. And something that stuck with me in my first meeting, someone told me, let us love you until you can love yourself. And I didn't know what that meant, because I didn't love myself at that time. And now I know what that means. And in these rooms, you find so much love and so much connection, and you find a home and a family outside of your own home and family. That there is so much more to life than what any little pill, shot, drink, anything can give you. Anything. You will get through the bad times, but you won't have to do it alone, because one of us can be there right beside you. And we will love you until you can love yourself.
Sarah, I think that is a beautiful way to end this show. I appreciate your time on a Saturday, and I'm definitely going to want to, if you are up for it, I would love to get a follow up with you after some of the things that you're working on. Hopefully, we get a positive reconciliation. I'm going to say a prayer for you tonight on a speedy, quick resolution, and get back to living life. But I truly thank you for your time. I thank you for your openness, your rawness, and I feel like lots of words of wisdom coming from you. There's going to be a lot of people that this video will hopefully benefit. So again,
thank you.
Enjoy the day. Okay, take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.